The following program is intended for mature audiences.
Oh yeah, welcome to Flesh Wound After Dark. This ain't Lon Chaney Jr., Triple X edition. I'm Flesh Wound Dan, joined by producer Todd. Todd, how goes your evening?
It was all right.
I make everything better. I brighten everything. So, yeah, but I say evening. It's actually a little earlier than normal right now, isn't it? So yes,
Evening.
it's evening, I guess. Well, it's evening for me, not so much for you, but yes, another Flesh Wound After Dark. Once again, thank you so much for all of the listens on our previous recent episodes. It's warms my heart to know that there are other people out here, obviously, that love the erotic thriller genre, and
But none love them harder than 12-year-old Dan.
no, yes, I mean these were sort of like those holy grail movies. Like you get a hold of one, whether it was previewed or somehow, some way you were able to rent one or watch one on HBO or Cinemax back in the day. It was like, this was before the hub,
I don't think I ever watched one on Cinemax. I know they're like Cinemax movies, but I like because I always just rented them right when they came out.
Yeah, actually, at least some of the ones we've done so far, maybe more HBO. It's hard to remember. Sometimes your mind gets.
So I didn't even mean that. I mean, I just remember renting them all. I don't remember watching these on cable at all.
Yeah.
I know they were there, but I don't want to watch Night Eyes 2 on rated R when I could watch it rated on VHS.
True.
Unrated.
The era where you always had to look, which we'll get into some of those too, because there's a lot to cover. And we're getting into some Fred Olin Ray stuff, a name that you'll see a lot of, not just erotic thrillers. Of course, he did a lot of softcore, but once again, I mean, tonight we're going to be talking about the Inner Sanctum movies. And if you're unfamiliar, the first Inner Sanctum was a very big deal in this erotic thriller subgenre, because that film at one point outrented Backdraft, according to Fred Olin Ray. That is how popular that was in 1991. Also predating Basic Instinct there. I mean, you have obviously Fatal Attraction and Basic Instinct as the huge Hollywood hits, the huge erotic thriller hits. And there were others, but those were a massive deal. And part of the reason why you had so many A-list stars in these movies. And yeah, Inner Sanctum was a huge hit. It may be forgotten by a lot of fans today because, and we were talking earlier before the show, that these movies, some of them never were on at least US DVD. Very few of the erotic thrillers, that weren't, obviously playing on the big screen. Very few on Blu-ray. I mean, it's a subgenre that's very overlooked on Blu-ray. And of course, I'm very happy to see these Skin Max DVDs coming from MVD, and I hope they sell well. I really do. I'm not greedy. It doesn't have to be a Blu-ray. I'll gladly buy some of these on DVD, but people just forget. And this is that period where, Night Eyes as well, which we will be covering. Stay tuned. That was a huge hit. That made millions of dollars, and it cost less than $1 million to make, but that made a fortune for Columbia Pictures Home Video. So this was this peak period right now that we're covering, where these movies were doing gangbusters in terms of business. And that obviously did change, but we still got many of these into the 90s, especially. So with that being said, we'll get right into it tonight with our first film from director Fred Olen Ray, 1991's Inner Sanctum. And in this, a woman attempts suicide when she suspects her husband doesn't love her and is having an affair. Now she's wheelchair bound, and her husband, who indeed doesn't love her and is having an affair, hires a private nurse to look after his wife. The nurse begins to suspect that she was hired because of unproven allegations that she murdered someone's wife in a similar situation. All right. So I've always loved these films. It was a blast revisiting them. Like I said, this is kind of like that peak era where, money in comparison to what came later was still being spent on these A-list stars. And in this one, it's pretty amusing because we start off, Jen, the wife, spends a lot of time being lady cucked at the bottom of the stairs in dream sequences where her cheating husband is like banging different women. This is, if you followed our other shows, an era where these are a little bit more plot line heavy, which is a good thing. I know a lot of people, our most successful show so far is the body chemistry films, and they were a little lighter on the bump and grind. These have a bit more than the first couple body chemistries for sure, but still kind of follows that plot centric erotic thriller feel. And so in this one, we have Tanya Roberts as Lynn Foster, the nurse, who apparently was very, very difficult.
Yes, I was gonna see this was coming up.
Fred Olen Ray said that she had a lot of stuff changed to, in her head, suit her character. So there's a lot of things in the movie that don't fully make sense with her character. Even towards the end, it's like, well, wait a minute. Like, what was the motivation here exactly? You have Joseph Bottoms as Baxter Reed, plays a pretty good asshole. He's not too terribly concerned about his wife, although she's kind of a pain in the ass too, in fairness. I mean, I'm not like pro Baxter Reed in this one, but like, she was
You kind of sound a little bit.
maybe a little bit, I don't know. But even being a mess, I still have a lot of fun with this. Like I said, Joseph Bottoms plays a pretty good asshole at one point. He's like, I ought to make you crawl. And he had some pretty nasty lines in this. We get Margot Hemingway as Anna Rollins, his secretary, basically, I guess you would call her, that is in love with him, but also disgusted by him, depending on the time. I mean, she doesn't mind getting bent over by him in the in the office, I guess. But the interesting thing about these movies too is there are horror elements, actually a lot when we get into the sequel. There's some of these dream sequences get a little creepy. At one point, she dreams that her mouth is sealed shut, with just skin, and the husband cuts her wrists and her throat. So there is like some nasty violence in here. So if you're a Fred Olen Ray fan, maybe not a big softcore fan, there is something for you that you wouldn't necessarily get in some of his later retro media era softcore, where it really was just bump and grind.
Wait, are you telling me there was no plot in about busty housewives versus zombies?
Little bit of plot, maybe like 10 minutes, and then like 80 of it.
Did I botch the name of that one too, or did I get it right?
Close.
Okay.
We'll go through all those at some point. So all of these movies always seem to have a voyeur theme. That's another thing. Like you have this mysterious neighbor that's caught filming them. There's a music number at one point. This one's pretty wild stuff. And it is a whodunit too, so it's a lot more interesting than your standard film later, where it really does. The plot takes a back seat to other things. So if you're a fan of Tanya Roberts, some very, very steamy scenes with her here. We also get William Butler for you Full Moon fans, and well, of course, many other things. Friday the 13th, 7, and
Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3.
TCM 3. I figured you'd bring that up. Susan Ager, who very familiar face. This one's not, well, Tanya Roberts, still star-studded. And as we get into the sequel, again, even more so, because this did exceptionally well. Probably, I believe I've heard throughout the years, though, I mean, Fred Olen Ray did not have fun on either movie, because there is a Tanya Roberts in the sequel as well. But I just had an absolute blast with this. The detective and his partner were amusing too. And there's a very lively, action-packed finale with it. This movie never feels like, oh man, I'm looking at my watch, which there are a lot of erotic thrillers. I think these are easily recommendable to somebody that are dipping their feet for the first time. You get just enough of the erotic content, but you've also got all sorts of other things going on, people being shoved out windows. It kind of goes slasher towards the end too.
It's a little bit of all just B movie. It's just got that feel. I mean, like, so if you're a fan of like just B movies, like just forget it's an erotic thriller, throw it on, and I think you'll have a good time.
90s movies in general. Because I've always said Fred Olen Ray, of course, Jim Wynorski, they really, more often than not, I'm not going to say everything's gold. I am a big Fred Olen Ray mark, but he knew how to make an entertaining movie. More often than not, with very few exceptions, I'm not bored during a Fred Olen Ray movie. He always delivers the fun. And this is certainly, I think, among his better films for sure. And this is, again, that era where he was working with a lot more money, certainly, than he had not too long after this. Early 90s to even just mid 90s in general, the video market just changed dramatically. And yeah, I really dug it. Where's this live for you, Todd?
It's funny because I probably haven't watched this one since VHS. So it was like revisiting it for the first time.
Oh, and I'm sorry, I was dipping into the second one with the partner, the detective and his partner. I'm getting ahead of myself, but yeah, go for it.
But it's weird because it is so B movie. I don't put it at the upper echelon, just because there's that certain feel I like with like an erotic thriller that goes up there. But this one's just so much fun. So while it's not one of my top erotic thrillers, it's still, it's definitely like above the middle. But B movies, it's just a good time, and even more so coming up.
Oh, absolutely. And Tanya Roberts, of course, maybe she was a bit of a bitch, but she's still a lot of fun. And also, rest in peace. I mean, she passed away in 2021, not too long ago. But there were a lot of things.
I was going to say a lot of people know her, younger people know her from That 70s Show as Midge, the wife of the neighbor.
Yeah, you know what? I wasn't That 70s Show guy. And before the show, I was kind of like looking at some of the later stuff she did. And I was like, oh shit. And 81 episodes. She was in a lot of that.
Yeah, she only left because of her husband was sick. Because she does come back at the last season. But yeah, her husband she went to take care of a sick family member.
And we will have more coverage of her because I mean she's been in here on After Dark. I mean she did movies like Legal Tender. I
Mhm.
remember Sins of Desire,
Well, when we get to Night Eyes, I mean, she's
Night
the
Eyes, of
in the
course. Yeah,
original.
absolutely. And I was always a big fan of her because of Beastmaster. I
Yeah.
mean I'm uh,
Most our age, closer to our age, are Beastmaster. A little older.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean Tourist Trap as well. I mean
Oh, yep.
she did some really fantastic movies. Sheena, everybody
Yeah.
rented
Oh,
that. I
yeah.
don't know, fantastic, but
It's pretty
everybody rented
fantastic.
that.
I got the Blu-ray over there.
Yeah, so she had a really interesting career. I mean, of course, The View to a Kill. She was also a Bond girl, so she had a great career. Very sad. She's only 71, so she was very young and uh, looks as beautiful as ever in Inner Sanctum. So yes, with that note, let's go ahead and rate this one because I think we're
Yeah.
going to talk about the sequel. I think even more so
You
because
think we might? You sure?
probably because
Okay.
this the
It's
sequel, even if you're not, you know,
let's rate it before we get to that.
oh, and also I should say because I mean she died a long time ago, but Margot Hemingway,
Oh, yeah.
R.I.P. also from this. I mean she passed in like '96, I believe. Uh, you could kind of tell there were some issues with her. Even in the second film, there was maybe it was just me, but there's a little bit of slurring of words. Like we talked about, like Jan Michael Vincent and Fred Olin Ray. I think he's a great guy personally, and he doesn't get enough credit for this. Did really help out a lot of people, particularly Robert Quarry, where he wasn't getting any more work. And, you know, John Carradine, who was in really rough shape if you watched him in any of the later stuff he did with Fred Olin Ray. Uh, he really helped out a lot of actors when nobody else would have them. And I think that's a very admirable thing. And it's a shame. Margot, also beautiful woman and very tragic that she died extremely young. But moving on to our next film, 1994, also from
Well, hold on,
direct.
Dan. Getting ahead of yourself. Let's rate it.
Oh, shit. I'm all off today.
That's
Yes,
all right.
let's rate it. All right. So I give Inner Sanctum 4 out of 5. I think it is a great erotic thriller. And again, you got something, a little something there for the slasher fans, horror fans too. I would not call it a straight slasher, but it's a good blending, like you said, of different B movie sensibilities.
Um, I'm a little low. I'm kind of rating it a little bit on the erotic thriller curve, and I'm a 3.5 on this one. Still a good one, still recommended. Just
Sweet.
yeah,
Definitely A-list as far as erotic thrillers go.
yeah.
And I should also say, initially, Fred Olin Ray, these movies were kind of conceived as a sort of homage to the Lon Chaney Jr. Inner Sanctum movies, of course, based on the popular radio series way back in the day. And a lot of that changed. And so the movie is muddled quite a bit, and I can see why maybe he doesn't enjoy it, but it's nonetheless very entertaining, even though at times maybe not everything makes
Yeah,
sense.
and that's kind of where I am with my rating because it's the entertainment value keeps that number high.
Absolutely. All right, so 1994, Inner Sanctum 2, once again, Fred Olin Ray. Uh, all right. A traumatized woman kills her rich husband in self-defense, and his family and friends show up to secure a piece of the inheritance for themselves, even if it means driving the poor woman insane or worse. All right, so this one actually we do get a little small role from Robert Quarry as a lawyer. Very cool. He's somebody that had a very rough time towards the end of his life. Uh, from what I understand, some fans that befriended him through the convention circuit kind of got involved in his life and did some not very nice things in terms of his finances and kind of took advantage of him. And luckily, I think it was Tim Sullivan actually that really also helped him out quite a bit towards the end of his life. It helped him, get into a new place and live with dignity once again. I'm a huge Count Yorga mark, and Robert Quarry is one of those actors who, had he have come along and had his big break a little bit earlier, would have had that Vincent Price career. In fact, he was sort of pegged to be the next Vincent Price at that time. It's just unfortunately that style of film was on the way out around that particular point that he broke out with Count Yorga and yeah, unfortunately. And of course, Sugar Hill. I mean, he's somebody that I really always respected a lot. And when you're going back and looking at some of the great films from Vincent Price and Bela Lugosi, etc., I'm not saying he had that kind of a career, but he is one. Angus Scrimm, I would throw that out. Angus Scrimm would have had a huge career if he came along in the 1930s. I
Oh
mean,
my
he would
God,
have been at the top of Hollywood, and I think Robert Quarry was another one of those guys.
yeah.
So this we do recast the Jennifer Reed character, this time being played by Tracy Brooks Swope. Um, and I think actually a little bit of a better actress, maybe. That's maybe arguable. There is some overacting by both, though, but that's, I think, also they're kind of playing kind of hysterical characters who've, been through a lot. And we get Michael Nuri as Bill Reed, the brother of her husband from the original film. And so this is where the problems on this one started. Fred Olen Ray was kind of cursed with these two films because he was also apparently like a major asshole. Now I've heard that said about him on other movies, so I don't think it was just a Fred Olen Ray thing. And yeah, unfortunately, he was a very difficult actor. This period for Fred Olen Ray, though, he was making some of his biggest films in terms of budget. He had other erotic thrillers sandwiched kind of in between these two: Possessed by the Night, Mind Twister, which he did with Telly Savalas. This was the golden era once again, and Inner Sanctum 2, I think, is an insanely entertaining movie. This one is very much still, I would say, a horror movie because we get lots of killings. We have a zombie of sorts. We get a lot of Scooby Doo elements, like Scooby Doo with fucking.
Best kind of Scooby. Wait,
best kind of Scooby Doo because we open it up once again. There's a lot of erotic / scary night or daydreams in this as well. That's kind of the theme. This one opens up with her in a graveyard visiting her husband's grave, and she gets locked in and has to essentially deal with her zombified husband. So I was like, oh wow, because I like vaguely remembered some of the zombie dream stuff, but it's been several years since I watched this movie, so I did forget about some of that. And it pops up it pops up a lot. In fact, this has a really good script, in my opinion. Over the top, but it really, there's something satisfying there for the whodunit fans. If you like a Scooby-Doo style story, which it goes hard on towards the end.
and I like me a Scooby Doo style story.
And yes, this is very much that. Sandal Bergman plays Michael Nuri's wife in this. She is somebody I met, and I would legit put her in at least the top 10, maybe high up on the top 10 in terms of nice people that I met. She she was one you could dork out with. You could bring up Inner Sanctum too, and she'd talk about it. You could bring up Hell Comes to Frogtown, and she'd talk to it. She was just a really genuinely sweet lady, and I'd love to meet her again at a convention if you have the chance. Sandahl Bergman's amazing, and funny, just such a nice person.
She is, and she is, and she.
She is, and she. Yes. She had some really good B movies. I actually just got Programmed to Kill from Kino
just
on
came
Blu-ray. Kind of Sandahl Bergman as the Terminator. And she famously turned down the lead role in Red Sonja too. So in retrospect, probably not a great move, but she had a really, not somebody who made like tons and tons of films, but she did a lot of really entertaining things.
Yeah.
Also, on the more A-list stars, we get David Warner, who plays the doctor, Dr. Lamont in this.
That was the one I was like, holy shit, he's in this. Love some David Warner.
Yeah, David Warner, of course, always slays it. And it's funny, since we've been doing specifically the erotic thriller After Darks, a lot of people that have listened to these shows have said, like, damn, I didn't realize so many big stars were in these things. I mean, not that they were at the peak of their stardom, but you had, David Carradine, James Brolin, a lot, sometimes character actors, sometimes headliners. And it was okay to do these movies. Now, I feel like we're in an era where a lot of actresses will just straight out refuse to do nudity of any kind. So an erotic thriller now is a hard sell. They don't hit at the box office. The few kind of sort of ones that we've gotten. We had late in the game stuff like In the Cut with Meg Ryan, where she actually has some steamy scenes in that. We had, of course, De Palma still kind of trying to carry on that tradition with stuff like Femme Fatale. None of that ever really hit at the box office. And
Color of Night didn't hit.
Color of Night, yeah. And that very weird that one didn't hit, because I mean, Bruce Willis was one of the biggest stars in the world, if not the biggest star in the world, probably at that particular point in time.
No one wanted to see his dick, I guess. Or is that just unrated?
I believe it's only in the unrated cut that you see John McClane's dingus,
which is now available on Blu-ray from Kino.
There you go. You want to see Bruce Willis's cock? Kino's got you covered. Glorious 1080p. But hey, you got the cock, the Bruce Willis cock for the ladies, and you got Jane March for us guys. So it's a good deal. Like I said, these are great couple movies. So yes, this one is just batshit wild, with the dead zombified husband showing up here and there. There's a lot of skin in this one. It definitely ups the skin factor. Not that it wasn't present in the other, but this one actually too, like some of the horror scenes are pretty intense. There's one where she's having sex, and then he turns into a skeleton and starts oozing this blood all over her tits, and it's a pretty intense little scene for an erotic thriller. Very entertaining. You don't quite know who's behind it all in this. Very good script. Over the top, but again, I think a very fun script in this one. I know, again, probably not exactly what Fred Olen Ray was going for, but as a fan, I'm certainly entertained by it. And when you get to the reveal and everything, it's like, oh, that's cool. You have the literal Scooby-Doo moment. I had an absolute blast with this. Michael Nuri, very good actor. Asshole maybe, but still very good actor. And he plays he's a better heel in this than I think Bottoms was in the first film. Where does this lie for you, Todd? Because I have a blast with this one.
See, when you ask me where it lies, like in the erotic thriller, again, kind of like the last one, this one's not quite high on the erotic thriller.
Oh, really?
What? it's high on the entertainment and it's batshit crazy. Like I said, kind of like the last one, where it
Yeah.
doesn't hit those erotic thriller beats I look for in erotic thriller.
So you want like more skin, although there's a
No,
good bit.
it's not really skin. I mean, plot.
Yeah.
My erotic thrillers, I like a little more grounded in reality. I mean, to me, that's what when you start adding other elements, it kind of becomes less erotic thriller to me. But
You
again,
don't like your supernatural with it, I know you said, but
yeah, to me that it changes the genre to me.
although I don't
Would you call The Entity a erotic thriller? Because I mean,
know, but like also is this supernatural? It's kind of it
again, but
really
again,
isn't.
but I love this movie. It's batshit insane. I had no idea. I didn't remember it. Dan's even like, if you don't remember it, yeah, it's nuts. It's fun. It's
Few
man.
nice kills too.
Yeah, I was like, Kruger might even tolerate this one.
Yeah, action-packed finale. This one, I mean, it's a very breezy watch. I think this is very highly recommended again for you that out there that don't want to just watch something that's like 80 to 90% just sex scenes, which can sometimes get boring.
Yeah,
I get it.
that's not even what I'm talking about in an erotic thriller. Like
Yeah.
I like him closer to like what we've done so far would be our first one, Body of Influence. That's like
Body chemistry.
body chemistry. Yeah, Body of Influence is the Madonna one.
Yeah. Where Willem Dafoe eats her pussy.
Yes. Spoiler.
Well, now everybody wants it, so we'll go on.
Well, now we'll have to move that one up in the rotation. Yes.
I remember renting that, and I think that came out in like 93, 92, 93. And I remember watching it and thinking, it's like, why does Madonna want to like ride Willem Dafoe's dick? This is weird casting.
We need just a flashback scene of that in the lighthouse, just where he's thinking in his head, just throw it in black and white.
When I was a young man, I don't know how I managed it, but I fucked Madonna. I think the whole time period might not make a whole lot of sense, but I would be. He probably. I want to just think he and Robert Pattinson were on set, and they just leaned over. It's like, I sucked on Madonna's titties once.
I like to imagine he does that to everyone he meets. He told Spider-Man,
"Hey, Toby, does banging Madonna get me in the Pussy Patrol?" that movie, he's got like the most over. I mean, you could put it up against anything. Like some of his line delivery in Spider-Man is just like when they were like, I can't remember the whole story, but when the board like pushed him out and like just he's like freaking out, it was just like, oh my god. I mean, I could give a shit really about Spider-Man, but Willem Dafoe steals that movie. But anyway,
the last one too.
Yes, but you want to see Willem Dafoe. We'll cover that one.
Now I want to watch some Willem Dafoe shit.
He's got a new one coming out where he's like an art thief and he gets like trapped in a building that looks really good. I forget the name off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's funny. Ozzy actually sent me that today. He was also, excited to see it. Inside. There you go. All right.
We will definitely cover that because I want to see it. Yeah, get Ozzy on. He's afraid. He's ducking me. I don't know why. But anyways, back to this one. I think this is easy to recommend to the horror crowd that might be learning about this subgenre through our show. It's really entertaining, and if you're a fan of any of the actors, and I was a huge Sandal fan. I had a crush on her back in the day, particularly not necessarily Conan. It was really for me, Hell Comes to Frogtown. That was a movie that I would rent nonstop, and of course, then I had it on VHS. But
of course, you had Piper and her, so that's why that one was preferred.
Absolutely,
Schwarzenegger wasn't as cool as Piper.
Yeah. But yeah, dive into her catalog. At some point, we got to cover a lot of the sword and sorcery stuff because that's my childhood. Um, so yeah, nasty villains, twists, turns, double crosses, and a good deal of boobies. What else could you want? And some slasher elements too. They're just fun films. Fred Olen Ray always delivers. Um, all that I can say before we rate this one, I really, really hope that these will get a Blu-ray at some point. I don't know if it's a rights issue. I mean, again, Inner Sanctum, Night Eyes, all these films, they were big hits on the video market. A lot of what we might consider super famous movies in this community did not make as much money in the horror genre as Inner Sanctum did. Inner Sanctum made millions on video, millions of dollars, and on a budget of, you know, little over half a million, six, 700,000. Uh, these were much like a Carnosaur or Prehysteria. We talk about a lot of these movies that some people look at as cheap direct to video trash, and it's like, no, remember back then some of these were massive hits.
Our cheap direct-to-video trash was SOV movies.
Yeah. So, Todd, what do you rate Inner Sanctum 2?
I'm a 4 on this one. I like this one for its craziness, and this one you can just throw on to anyone, and I think there's enough batshit stuff going on that people will have fun with it.
I am a 4.5. I love this. I think it's entertaining as hell. I will say what's interesting about these two movies is the two actresses that play Jen, which in the first one was Valerie Wildman, and then in the second one, forget her name, was Tracy Brooks Swope. Not your traditional leads for these types of movies. They're both attractive, but not your Shannon Tweed type.
Right.
And that is the one thing that I know others have pointed out. Again, not saying they're not attractive. I think they're both very attractive ladies, but just not your traditional headliners for these films. But overall, highly recommend the Inner Sanctum movies. At some point, I guarantee we will review some that are just not that great. we'll bring you those too. But
I said there's some SOV ones. I am interested to finally check those out.
Absolutely. Also, some of these we also had some Michelle Bauer body double action. Somebody asked me, he's like, where was Michelle Bauer? I was like, well, she did body double work. So some of those boobs and butts were Michelle Bauer. So there you go.
And Dan, if you watch with Dan, he will point out every time that it is.
Oh, that's Michelle Bauer's ass crack right there. That is not her ass crack.
So remember that whenever you guys do the commentary for, if we ever get a release, Dan will do that for free.
I want to just do it like really serious Criterion style, just where I'm just like a pretentious director. And in the upcoming scene, that is in fact not Tracy Brooks Swope's ass crack. That is Michelle Bauer. I can do it. I can be respectable.
Star of such films.
So once again, guys, thank you so much for listening. We will have a lot more of this content in 2023. So subscribe, hit that notification bell. That means so much. It helps the channel grow. And I like to think by extension helps get the word out about these movies because, physical media won't be around forever. And if we don't, a whole generation will not discover this stuff if we don't shout it from the rooftops. So I do think it's important. Some of you might be thinking, who cares if, these titty movies aren't. Well, you know what? We don't get anything like this anymore. We don't. unless that rare occasion that somebody shoots something for like a couple $1,000, literally in some cases. So this is an entire era of filmmaking that I really hope more of this gets put out. DVD's fine. DVD's fine.
Blu-rays, please.
Blu-ray, well, yeah, a few of these too, I think, warrant the Blu-ray. I can understand as you get later in the 90s, DVD
Yeah.
might be okay for certain things. Because like I say, again, some of them never had DVDs. Uh,
A
I
lot of them haven't.
Yes, a lot.
Ki-
And we will
ki-
also sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's crazy that the only US DVD of any of the Night Eyes films is the fourth one,
Yeah, the debut of
and that was been on
Casper
DVD,
Van Dien.
and that was been on DVD twice.
Yeah. I actually have to I'm not sure if it was Beastmaster 3 or that. I'd have to double check. But yeah, Casper Van Dien. When we do the Night Eyes, which will be coming soon-ish, it's kind of impressive some of the stars that popped up in those too, which we'll talk a lot about. A lot of people you wouldn't necessarily expect to be in those movies. We will also, just a teaser for stuff coming up, we're going to tackle some softcore, some late 90s into the 2000s softcore as well. We're going to try and jump around and hit you with all kinds of stuff because nobody is really doing this. There's very few people that are covering this. So we definitely want to be that destination for you. So if you fondly remember names like Kira Reed, Kim Dawson, Nikki Fritz, Sean O'Brien, going into Todd's favorite, The Seduction Cinema, Misty Monday, Darian Kane, Ruby LaRocca. We will AJ Khan. We will be covering all of those as well. So thanks for taking this softcore smut journey with us. We appreciate it. Patreon.com/fleshwoundfeatures. It all starts at just $1, and you really help us out by becoming a patron. We have exclusive, original, uncensored content on there. And yes, don't miss all of our horror stuff as well. Horror, true crime. We've got the Tribal Chief that covers a lot of comedy on Flesh Wound Farce as well. Busy. It's hard for him. He's got big WrestleMania coming up.
Speaking of which, we got a lot more Squared Circle Society too.
As well. We're your home
Interviews.
for everything. All right. So on that note, good night. Stay spicy. Yeah.